Well, hello again. No, you're not looking at me, although Richard Dolan does look a little like me, apparently. Now, there are some notes that have been released recently that were written by this scientist. And there were notes made in the back of a car, apparently, after a meeting with an Admiral that was the Assistant Director of the Defence Intelligence Agency, I believe. Now, I've had a very quick look at these, and I think Richard Dolan may actually be wrong here when he says this.
And unlike, say, the various MJ-12 or Majestic documents, there is no argument over their authenticity.
Yes, okay, there's no argument over their authenticity. That means that the scientist that wrote the notes is saying, yes, I wrote the notes. That's the only way that anybody knows they're authentic. He said, I had the meeting with the guy. This is the meeting to the best of my recollection, and I made these notes. That's as authentic as it gets, you know. So it's not been sort of verified by others. Be interesting to read the notes and actually listen to Richard Dolan and see if the Admiral's actually verified the meeting took place. But I think Richard is issuing a bit of a challenge here. So we'll see if we can meet the challenge.
These documents are real. And we need to be clear about what this is. It's not a classified statement from the president or even from Wilson himself talking about the reality of this program.
Exactly. Yes, it's not. It's a scientist's notes made to the best of his recollection.
However, it is a wholly credible series of notes by a scientist who only intended for this to go to an extremely limited group of close colleagues. And as such, it has exceptional credibility. Moreover, the amount of detail and the specific names that are cited in this document make it obvious that this is all very real. I believe it will be impossible to debunk this leak as a hoax or fabrication. At most, skeptics might argue that somehow these men were given wrong information, and that's really the most that they'll be able to say. But
well, we'll see. As I've said before, you know, I'm not hostile to this. I have an interest in this field. I would like to know if this is really happening, and I would love to come across something that I can't debunk, that would convince me that this is real, this is really happening. And to be perfectly honest, I've had a quick flick through these notes, and I don't see anything in there that convinces me that this is real. There's far too many holes in it, and we'll be looking at the notes, and I'll show you what I think the holes are, and we can look at a couple of other things, and I'll tell you what I think is really going on with this.
as you're going to see, this is also not a credible argument. So the full 15 pages, I'm going to show.
Well, we'll see what see if I can come up with a credible argument, Richard. To be perfectly honest, I hope I can't, but I suspect I will be able to.
Show them all to you briefly. You will be able to screenshot them, and I would really recommend, in fact, you just go to the website where they are located. The website.
Yes, thanks, Richard, and yes, I'll do that. All right, well, let's. I think I'll stop this clip here, and I'll go to the website and take a look at the notes. Okay, so let's have a look at the notes. This is page three of the leaked notes. I think these notes are leaking like a sieve, to be perfectly honest. Richard Dolan says, you know, why would the notes be fabricated? Why would Davis be lying? He only produced these notes to show to a close group of friends. Well, what you've got to bear in mind is that there's an awful lot of rubbish spruiked around UFOs, free energy and all this sort of stuff, and a lot of it has got to do with generating money. Now, we find that Dr. Eric W. Davis is the CEO of a company called Warp Drive Metrics. There's the address for Warp Drive Metrics in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, first of all, let's just have a very quick look at what sort of company Warp Drive Metrics is. You know, is it a sort of big outfit, little outfit, one industrial unit? Is it that one? Is it that one? It's probably going to be this one. Okay, so I put into the Google search bar, US company, Warp Drive Metrics. And there doesn't appear to be a company called Warp Drive Metrics, not today anyway. Now, these notes I think were from 2002, so it could be that Warp Drive Metrics has gone bust. It could be that these notes were produced in order for Dr. Davis to rake in some investment money to keep his company going. Like a lot of the free energy companies do, you know, they'll generate something to get a bit of interest, get a bit of income running, get a bit of income stream. Usually doesn't last long, of course, because the investors like to see results, and with free energy and certainly with Warp Drive, I suspect they're not going to see any results anytime soon. So it's got US military released a study on warp drives, but there's no Warp Drive enterprises, competitors, revenue. One of Warp Drive enterprises. See, that's not Warp Drive Metrics, is it? So basically, there's no. I don't see a website there for Warp Drive Metrics. So if you know anything about this company, maybe you could leave a link below and I'll take a look at it. What I did take a look at was, let's get rid of that one. What I did take a look at was the address. So Warp Drive Metrics, 4849 San Rafael Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada 89120. So, you know, what does this company look like? What does it look like on the outside? And there it is. It's a fairly modest bungalow. It's in Google Earth. 4849 San Rafael Avenue, Nevada. Read it through the viewfinder as usual. There's the house, and we can see there's the number there. 4849. I don't know if you can see that. You can look at it yourself on Google Earth. So this is Warp Drive Metrics. So, you know, it's a bloke tinkering around in his garden shed or his garage. And I think that he could very well try and drum up a little bit of money to get this company rolling. So I think Richard Dolan saying, well, this must all be real because he's just, he only intends these notes to be shown to a few close friends, doesn't mean anything at all, because it could be a complete fabrication. It certainly could have a lot of fanciful nonsense in there to pique a bit of interest and get a bit of money in. You know, it could be as simple as that. Okay, let's just stop this clip here and either go back to Richard Dolan or have a further look at the notes. Going back to the Richard Dolan video, so we've seen Warp Drive Metrics, and it appears to be nothing more than Dr. Davis as the CEO of Warp Drive Metrics, but it seems to be he's the only employee of Warp Drive Metrics. If Warp Drive Metrics ever actually existed in the first place. So it's not looking good so far. So it's not a big company. Sounds impressive, doesn't it, on the CEO of Warp Drive Metrics. When we have a look at the building, it's actually his house, modest bungalow. And you know, a lot of people will start up a one-man company, and they're the CEO, of course, because it doesn't have any other employees. All right, well, so we're not off to a good start, to be perfectly honest. And I think what makes things considerably worse is coming up.
So, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about our notes by Dr. Eric Davis that were written down on October 16, 2002. Now, who is Eric Davis? Here's an image of Dr. Davis. Here we go.
And what I really like about Richard Dolan is that he's worse at doing this than I am. Now, there's a trustworthy guy if I've ever seen one. And, of course, he's got to be a smart guy because he's a doctor, he's a PhD, and he's got lots of books behind him.
He is a scientist, but he's surely much more than just any old scientist. He's a very interesting scientist. For many years during the 1990s, Dr. Davis was a member of the National Institute for Discovery Sciences, which, of course, was owned.
Well, looking at the address, it doesn't look like he's ever made too much money out of it, does it?
By billionaire Robert Bigelow. That's NIDS. NIDS was a very important organization back then. It brought scientific rigor to many interesting areas of research connected to UFOs and beyond, frankly. The mystery of the Black Triangles, for instance, and most famously, the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah.
Yeah, so, you know, we're off to a shaky start and it's getting worse. You know, the Bigelow Company, all that research at the Skinwalker Ranch, they were there for years and haven't produced one video clip of anything unusual. So, you know, the Skinwalker Ranch story has zero credibility, I think. Bigelow, again, he's tied up with the TTSA. I saw Tom DeLonge being interviewed by Joe Rogan, I think it was, and he showed this ridiculous science fiction image of a spacecraft and said it was real. TTSA is not real. It's just a stunt. It's not. They're not building a starship. They're certainly not in cahoots with the government. Put a line through the TTSA. You're never going to hear anything from the To the Stars Academy. Ridiculous name. And some of the people that are involved in this story really have zero credibility, as we shall see.
Something Dr. Davis was very much involved in studying.
So he was involved in studying the Skinwalker Ranch as well. Okay, I'm beginning to think we can say right here, this is nonsense. Put a line through it, move on. Nothing to see here. But let's at least persevere and have a look at the notes.
Davis is also a very close associate of Dr. Hal Puthoff.
Oh no. The remote viewing guy, again, no such thing as remote viewing, zero credibility.
Dr. Puthoff owns a scientific company, Earth Tech. He, of course, has an
That's probably in his garden shed.
Extensive career in science and the world of intelligence. Both of these, along with Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff developed the protocols for America's classified remote viewing program in the night.
Yeah, nonsense, remote viewing. Science fiction, hogwash. I've heard the name Targ as well somewhere, but I can't recall where.
1970s and 80s. He is an expert in zero-point energy.
Again, you know, free energy. Put a line through that. Nonsense, science fiction.
He's written papers on what is called space-time metric engineering. Think about that for a moment. And of course, Dr. Puthoff has worked very closely with Robert Bigelow on many occasions. He is an integral member of To the Stars Academy, TTS.
Yeah, this is looking worse and worse. He's an integral integral member of the To the Stars Academy. This is another, cash collecting science fiction outfit.
I say, Hal Puthoff is someone I have known for many years, and I've said it over and over again that he is someone who has always quietly been trying to help the cause of UFO disclosure. That is my job.
Yeah, remember too that Dolan said that he never wanted to get a real job. There's no way he's going to work 9 to 5. He's going to make his career out of UFOs, spruiking UFO stories. Again, doesn't speak well for the credibility.
judgment on the matter. I've known for a long time. Also, in my own judgment, and I'm surely not alone in this, Davis and Puthoff are currently engaging in some of the most important scientific research related to UFOs in terms of their work on the now famous artifact from an alleged UFO crash, let us say, which contains what's known as metamaterial and possesses incredible properties. I've discussed this elsewhere.
This sounds a little fanciful. Have we seen any evidence of this artifact? Do we know it exists? Is this just another science fiction invention to rake in some investment money for research? To be perfectly honest, I've said this before and many times, and I'll say it again, alien spacecraft are not going to come here and crash. Technology will be beyond our imagination. They're likely to be self-healing. You know, they're not going to be affected by lightning. We're not going to be able to shoot them down. What's going to make them crash? They're going to have redundant systems on them. So if something fails, it's not going to crash on an alien planet. Chances are that the size of craft that they're talking about, the size of vehicles that they're talking about, they're not here alone. If they're here at all, they would have come from a mother ship, for want of a better term. And that they'll have recovery protocols in place so they don't leave their technology on developing worlds, you know, where it can be back engineered. Someone said, well, you know, it might be an interstellar spacecraft that it might have been one of the first ones made, so it didn't have this self-healing technology. But the technology involved in an interstellar spacecraft would be so advanced that, you know, as I said, it'd be difficult for us to imagine. It's certainly going to be self-healing. They're not going to come here and crash. So I'd be very, very surprised if this was a real alien artifact. The other thing too is if you could produce something that was definitely of extraterrestrial origin, you'd probably get a Nobel Prize, wouldn't you? Because you'd be able to prove beyond any doubt that extraterrestrial technological civilizations exist.
So more on that another time.
Oh, Richard, why can't we see it?
The bottom line is that Eric Davis is not just any scientist, but he is a scientist with a deep appreciation and solid scientific approach to certain areas of what we might call the fringe. And through his association with people like Bigelow and Puthoff, Dr. Davis clearly has been able to have had access, at least from time to time, maybe more than that for all I know, to powerful individuals like, on this occasion, Admiral Thomas Wilson.
Yeah, so for all he knows, so Dolan is doing the usual thing. He's just talking it up because this is Dolan's business. He wants you to be intrigued. He wants you to buy his books, and he wants you to look into this and buy DVDs. It's a self-supporting thing. They all do this. It's an industry, this UFO business. All right, well, I'm going to stop this clip here, and I think we'll just take a look at Dr. Davis's notes. Okay, so we've heard Richard Dolan talking about an alien artifact. We didn't get to see it. The fact that these people are tied up with Bigelow and the TTSA, angling for money from governments or the American government presumably, and other investors maybe to look at this stuff. This artifact could be something they've fabricated just as a prop, you know, just like the free energy guys do. They fabricate this machine and suck in quote marks investment, close quote marks money. They need funding to do research on this, so they need to toss you. They need to toss the investors a bone. They need to toss a bone out there to get some interest going and to get some investment going. So this alien artifact may very well be something like that. I'll look into that. Maybe I'll do a video on the alien artifact if I can find any information on it as an individual thing. Okay, so this is from the notes. This is from page 4 of the notes. It's talking about need to know. This is all very X-Files, you know. Remember, they're meeting in a car. They're sitting in the back seat of a car. Why couldn't be sitting in the passenger seat talking to the fella driving? You know, he might have been driving the car. It's always in the back seat of the car, isn't it? Is it an underground car park? Well, it's not dark, is it? It's in the morning. Okay, now this is the Admiral. All that said, and pending further discussion with you and Hal, I'll be Hal Putoff, on your ultimate objectives for having such information, I could provide the following. Particulars on a special team involved as a secondary mission with recovering crashed craft, including but not limited to the previously classified F-117 stealth fighter, this team or its successors, its parent sponsoring entity, and the black helicopters are turning up to grab me. I know you can hear that in the background. And it's actually, I had 3 Black Hawks fly over the house really low the other day, shook the place quite significantly. Running in dark mode or whatever they call it. It was at night, I couldn't actually see them. Only one, I could see them when I went outside and looked straight up. I could see the silhouettes, only one of them was illuminated. But anyway, I'm going off a tangent here. Beginning to sound like Tony Topping. Oh dear. Right, this team, or its successors, its parent sponsoring entity, and its 2 key officers may provide some of the information that you seek. Okay, so yeah, well, it makes sense that there's going to be a team that would be involved in recovering crashed aircraft, you know. The F-117 stealth fighter. If any of these things crash, someone's going to have to go and sweep up all the bits. The team involved is as a secondary mission. That means they have primary jobs within the companies, or different companies, a company or the military. And when something like this happens, they're pulled together as a team and they'll go and do something. They'll go and do a recovery. But see, often, you know, lies and exaggerations are hidden between truths. It's the best place to put them. So it makes perfect sense to have a special team that would do that sort of thing. It doesn't mean it's got anything to do whatsoever with alien spacecraft, crashed alien spacecraft. It's just crashed aircraft. So he can provide particulars. I wonder if he does. The name and last location of a senior officer who, I believe, had first-hand knowledge, US government, it doesn't make sense, US government alien reproduction vehicles, ARVs, at Area 51 and assaulted locations. Okay. So the name and last location of a senior officer who I believe had first-hand knowledge. So he doesn't know he had first-hand knowledge. He's either been told by somebody that this bloke knows something about it. Oh, it is going on. Yeah, this guy knows about it, you know. He doesn't know. He believes. So, you know, it doesn't really mean anything, does it? The name and current location of a retired senior flag rank officer who I believe was directly involved in government interaction with a significant UFO event on the East Coast of the US, and I believe has, by virtue of his former leadership position, high military rank and control of significant military forces, direct knowledge of US government involvement in this business. And again, I believe, he doesn't know. He doesn't know as a fact. He's got no, you know, first-hand involvement in this. So this is meaningless, really, isn't it? This is just more X-Files stories. The name and general location. A list of civilian government contractors who, by virtue of their past and current highly classified work, current capabilities, clearances, specialised personnel and geographic areas of concern, most likely have current involvement in and knowledge of US government work in alien-derived technologies, crashes, landing and associated events. So he could come up with a list of companies that will be government contractors that could be quite real, you know, Lockheed Martin and you know, all these other. I think Bigelow Aerospace even is contracted, isn't it, to the company? You know, General Dynamics, Raytheon. There'll be a whole list of them. That could be a perfectly real list. Those companies will all be real. Doesn't mean they're doing anything with recovered alien technology. Doesn't mean they're doing anything with alien spacecraft crashes. To me, it would make more sense to have a military team, again, as a secondary mission or functionality that would do something like that. They deal with it all. and then they decide who they're going to give, what bits to, rather than have companies that are going to be sort of going out and... Maybe that's what that means, actually. You're most likely to have current involvement in and knowledge of. Yeah, okay, so that, so they could, again, they're not going to crash, they're not going to have anything to recover, but they could, if they recovered some of this stuff, they would have certain companies, they're probably in Nevada and around there, so the UFO guys are going to be able to reel off the top of their heads what these companies are. They're real companies. Doesn't mean they're doing anything with any of this stuff. It's like Corso's book, I think it's generally recognised as being a fabrication. Interview with Kevin Moore, his son, said that a lot of the book was fabricated to sell the book. A list of civilian. Finally, I have a request. I'm trying to locate a company in Las Vegas. Oh, okay. So we're not particularly interested in what he's trying to locate. All right. I'm just going to have a quick look through the notes, and I'll restart the camera. Yeah, this is sort of going around all over the place. Miller told Greer of their conversation. Who knows whom else he and Greer told? Really, if Greer's involved with this, I wouldn't give it any credibility at all. With his UFO stuff, he showed a picture of a shrub, said it was a materialising alien ambassador. He didn't show us any pictures of the ambassador once it fully materialised. Greer was going to release some free energy technology, wasn't he? It's all rubbish. Put a line through bloody Greer. It gets worse and worse, really. Actually, just while we're on the subject of Greer, Greer's always standing in front of an audience saying he's given these briefings and all this sort of stuff. This is a letter from a CIA director called Worsley. Greer was saying that he briefed Worsley on the UFO ET situation. And this is a letter from Worsley to Greer. Dear Dr. Greer, it's just come to the attention of the four of us, because Greer and his wife went to dinner with Worsley and a couple of other people, that you have, without giving any of us the opportunity to comment, published a distorted account of a dinner party of some 6 years ago. This letter is dated September the 16th, 1999, at which the four of us, you and your wife, were seated together. In the introduction to your book, there's always books about this stuff. They're always flogging books, aren't they? Extraterrestrial Contact, published earlier this year. You portray this dinner party conversation during which the four of us listened to your views and politely asked questions as a briefing, in quote marks, with a cover story, in quote marks. You further assert that Mr. and Mrs. Worsley reported a UFO sighting to you and agreed with your views. You include specific alleged quotations from them. None of this is accurate. You have portrayed politeness as acquiescence and questions as affirmations. Your conduct in this matter contravenes both accuracy and simple manners. Sincerely. And there's the four signatures. James Worsley, he was a CIA director, I think, at the time. So basically, Greer is full of it. If anything's saying Greer's involved, put a line through it. It's nonsense. So what else have we got here? I'm just going to stop the camera again, I think, and I'll see if I can find something else. This is just, who's told who was furious about what. Stupid comments. That I will be talking to UFO nuts. So, co-workers, flag officers in the Pentagon, lower staff, civilian SES people in Intel community I work with, got calls about articles and didn't like it. When he talks to Keane and Boston Globe articles came out. Not sure what he told Keane. Miller told Ed Mitchell. Yeah, so this is Admiral Miller, isn't it? Talks with Keane. Yeah, okay. I don't think any of this is relevant, to be honest. I'm going to stop the camera and just move on to the next clip. Okay, so there's this is the Admiral again, I think, isn't it? TW? Yeah, that is correct. Willing to say that most were program employees, names and titles, job titles civilians, didn't recognise any military personnel. They could be there. So Dr. Davis is asking, any politicians? No. So no White House names were on this list who had access to this information. The President wasn't on there. No congressional people, no congressional staffers, any in Clinton or Bush seniors administrations. No. But a handful were Pentagon individuals I recognised. Pentagon, SES, whatever that is. Program manager said they were not any weapons program, not any intelligence program, not any special ops or logistics program. Doesn't fit these categories. I asked what they were then. Loud groan from program manager. Security director and attorney say it's okay to say it. So they're not a weapons program, not an intelligence program, not a special ops or logistics program. Doesn't fit these categories. Okay. Probably got nothing whatsoever to do with aliens then. Alien technology would certainly be pilfered for a weapons program, wouldn't it? Certainly be recovering an alien spacecraft would certainly be special operations and logistics, wouldn't it? Doesn't fit any of these categories. Yeah, okay, I'll stop it again. So, they weren't special ops or a logistics program or a what was it? I can't remember what they said now. Go down a bit. Not a weapons program, not an intelligence program, not any special ops or logistics program. Doesn't fit any of these categories. I asked what they were then. A loud groan from the program manager. I'm reading a bit like a novel here, isn't it? Security director and attorney say it's okay to say it. Say what? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It reads like a novel. I suspect that's what it is. I don't honestly believe this. Personally. They were a reverse engineering program. Something recovered years ago in the past, always is, isn't it? Technological hardware was recovered, so I thought they meant recovered Soviet, Chinese, etc. hardware and reverse engineer it. Like a missile or intel platform or aircraft, actually came to meeting expecting to find a sensitive foreign collection and reverse engineering operation. Thought UFOs used as a cover for that. So I said that, and they said they weren't that either. Okay, so this Admiral's gone along. This is the assistant director of the DIA, I believe, isn't it, TW? So he's gone along and he's asking these questions. So something was recovered years ago in the past. Technological hardware was recovered. I thought they meant, this is what he's heard, he's got no first-hand experience of this. I thought they meant recovered Soviet, Chinese, etc. hardware and reverse engineer it, like a missile, intel platform or aircraft. Actually came to the meeting expecting to find a sensitive foreign collection of reverse engineering operations. Thought UFOs used as a cover for that. So I said that, and they said they weren't that either. So he's looking for UFOs. They've got some sort of program that's called something to do with UFOs. Otherwise, you wouldn't think he thought UFOs were used as a cover. Now, if they didn't actually call this program, this reverse engineering program, reverse engineering UFOs or alien spacecraft or anything like that, he wouldn't have thought UFOs were used as a cover for that program, would he? So they actually called it that. I think that's pretty unlikely in itself. And so I said that, and they said they weren't that either. Yeah, it's not only reading like a novel, it's reading like a pretty poor novel, to be perfectly honest. Completely unconvincing. Completely unconvincing. They had a craft, an intact craft, they believed could fly. And there's question marks in space, in air, in water. What are the dimensions? Was it from overseas or not? Now, this is what this guy, this Admiral, the assistant director of the DIA, is asking. And they said, no, could not be, wasn't possible, exclamation mark. So he said that loudly. Why, I asked, where did it come from? Program manager said they didn't know where it was from. They had some ideas on this. It was technology that was not of this earth, not made by man, not by human hands. Yeah. So this was supposedly written in 2002? When was the X-Files on TV? In the late 90s? I honestly think this was written recently. I don't think this is real, to be honest. I think this is it's just a bit of it's just tossing the UFO alien ET people a bone, just like the MJ12. I think I've said that in a previous clip, actually, just like the MJ12 documents. This says nothing, really. There's no first-hand stuff in here at all. It's all, this is what this guy said, this is what this guy was told, this is what this guy believed. He believes this chap knows all about it. But if Davis had gone to this chap and this chap said, no, I know nothing about it, then he obviously believed wrong, didn't he? So there's nothing here. Okay, we'll persevere with this for a little bit longer. Said we're trying to understand and exploit the technology. Their program was going on for years and years with very slow progress, agonisingly slow with little or no success, because obviously he's got to explain why we haven't seen any of this, nothing's happened with it. Painful lack, top secret aircraft are still propelled by burning kerosene. There's no anti-gravity, there's no exotic propulsion systems in production aircraft. Painful lack of collaboration to get help from outside community of experts and facilities to assist in the effort. Must remain isolated, use own facilities and cleared personnel. Tough environment to work in, about 400 to 800 workers, varying in number with funding or personnel changes. Now, personally, I don't believe that at all. I think if the US government had a recovered alien spacecraft and their experts were getting nowhere with it, there would be no reluctance to collaborate with the outside community. They would want the top people on the face of the earth working on that project. The top physicists, top engineers, the top scientists generally would be falling over each other to work on this project. And I find it very hard to believe, that the US government would not call on those people, would not say, look guys, we've actually got one of these things, come and have a look, see what you think, we're getting nowhere with it, come along, see what you think. They're not going to just leave it in a shed and get nowhere with it and not tell anyone about it. That's absolute nonsense. I just do not believe that. Especially when earlier in the piece they're talking about using outside contractors, aren't they? No government involvement, using lots of... It's a contradiction, isn't it? And they're talking about using lots of contracting companies, defence contractors, there's no government involvement. So, anyway, let's just continue with this what I'm now convinced is piffle. He asked questions about Roswell. So again, this is Miller again, is the Admiral, isn't he? He's the Assistant Director of the Defence Intelligence Agency. He knows nothing about this. He's asking these questions about this stuff. He's asking about Roswell, the craft, the bodies, the autopsies. Well, you know, we know that there's nothing to the Roswell story. If anything is based on the Roswell story, it's a fabrication, because Mac Brazel found the Roswell wreckage on June the 14th, 3 weeks before July the 7th, when supposedly this thing was brought down in a storm. He described what he's found, what he found as balsa wood sticks, tin foil, rubber strips, a cardboard fin glued to a surface. He's not describing an alien spacecraft. People say, well, obviously Mac Brazel was got at, but no, because all Brazel had to say to get all these people off his back was, yeah, it was a weather balloon. That's all he had to say. Just toe the government line, it was a weather balloon, that would have been it. But he said no, he'd never seen anything like this. He was familiar with finding weather balloons. What he found wasn't a weather balloon. From his description, it obviously wasn't an alien spacecraft either. It was a Mogul or similar type special purpose balloon string. Holloman Air Force Base landing. Now, I think this is the one that was described by Gordon Cooper, the astronaut, wasn't it? And he wrote himself into the story. He was actually told it by some people. There's no first-hand experience of that. MJ-12. Again, I think that was fabricated by Stanton Friedman and co. to bolster the ridiculous Roswell story. Zamora, I know very little about. Bentwaters, I strongly suspect. What actually happened there was there's a very, very high power medium wave radio station, over 2.5 megawatts, I think it was, peak envelope power, amplitude modulated radio station for propaganda broadcasting into Eastern Europe at Orford Ness, and it used 5 or 6 big towers in a line to make the signal directional, so you couldn't really hear it in the UK, but there was this massive signal beamed across Eastern Europe with this very, very high power. It's amplitude modulated, so you've got a high frequency electromagnetic field changing rapidly in amplitude. And I think what happened was it probably had a problem with the phasing on the antennas, so instead of beaming all the energy into Eastern Europe, it got beamed into the forest between the two Air Force bases. You know, there was a lot of moisture in the air, and there'd have been very, very high voltages with electromagnetic radiation, and that's probably what they saw. They probably just saw some sort of plasma from that effect. Is probably what they were chasing around. I think that's the down-to-earth explanation for Bentwaters. Remember, only Peniston says he saw a structured craft. The others only saw lights. And Peniston, 30-odd years later or whatever it was, suddenly remembered he'd written down all this binary information that contained the coordinates for High Brazil. So Peniston's a fantasist. Put a line through that. So none of these really. Say I don't know much about the Zamora one, but certainly the others are all nonsense. So he asked about those, and they were mum. They declined to discuss them. He then threatened to go to SAPOC, whatever that is, to complain and gain access to their program. They said, go ahead, do what you must. And I think they threatened him with being demoted and early retirement and kicking him out. Anyway, let's move on to the next clip. Typical X-Files, bloody nonsense here. Miller and Greer said to you nearly got busted. So this is the Admiral, yeah. So, yeah, close to that. Told Miller, senior review group chairman. Told Miller, senior chairman, said if I didn't follow their suggestion, then I would not see director of DIA, presumably that's Defence Intelligence Agency, promotion. Remember, he's the assistant director at the moment. He can't get any of this information. That's what he's telling this guy. Get early retirement, lose 1 or 2 stars along the way. Incredibly angry, get upset over this, livid. Yeah. Why such a big deal over this, considering the position of trust I have in the Pentagon? I do have relevant regulatory statutory authority over their program. That's my position. So, you know, why doesn't he know? Why doesn't he have access to all this? I think he's just telling Davis that he doesn't. He's telling Davis his fanciful yarn because none of it's real. If it was real, he would have access to it. For reasons best known to himself. Perhaps he thinks Davis is the TTSA are going to get something going. You know, it's going to have some money. He's going to retire. And he'll make some money out of it as some sort of consultant, possibly. Although supposedly this was typed up in 2002, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm beginning to doubt that. If it was typed up in 2002, why? Why has it taken 17 years to see the light of day? It's a little bit like Peniston's binary notes, isn't it? You know, oh, I found this 30 years later. Just as the story's getting a bit cold, you know, it needs to generate a bit more interest, generate a bit more money. Can you describe the type of people that are on the list? They're corporate types, scientists and technicians, engineers, scientists, lots of scientists, managers, etc. Any military organisations you recognise? None. Yeah. All right. I think we'll end this here. I don't really think it's worth looking at much more of this. Actually, I'll just have a look at what page is this? I think we're one page from the end. Let's just have a look at the last page. You know, there's quite a few things that he can't answer. They're core secrets. It's the sort of thing you'd expect to see in a fabricated document. Or no juicy stuff, no first-hand stuff. So, yeah, I won't answer that. Yeah, we talked to Gensler in 98 about my 97 meetings. He was briefed by somebody. What did he say? UFOs are real. So-called alien abductions are not real. Gensler said this. Who else? What else? Told to drop the matter. No more discussions about it. Willing to talk to Hal Putoff and Kit Green. Yeah, discussed who they were, RV program and history. Not familiar with the names, heard about the RV program. Maybe not for Hal. No response on Kit Green. Prefers never to talk to anyone else about this again. What will you, EWD, do with this? Keep it for private personal research, data collection to track down the story. Ascertain signal to noise in media from government sources. Keep it for private personal research, data collection to track down the story. Ascertain signal to noise in media and from government sources. We'll keep mouth shut, etc., etc., which is why we're reading it on the internet. Ingo Swan's story, RVers. Yeah, forget RVing. It's there's no such thing as remote viewing. Well, I don't think this is a very convincing document. I think Richard Dolan is wrong. I think it's very easy to debunk. It says nothing really. There is nothing in this that would convince me that the US government has recovered and is re-engineering alien spacecraft. What about you? What do you think? Maybe you disagree. Well, I'll leave a link to Richard Dolan's video below so you can have a look at that and see what you think. And yeah, tell me what you think. Leave your comments below. As always, if you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, thank you very much indeed for watching, and perhaps I'll catch you again.